Bear with us here.
Yeah.
How you doing today, Josh?
I'm doing well. Doing well. It's been a pretty smooth day so far.
Hey, don't jinx it, all right? We don't believe in jinxes. That's witchcraft.
That's
all right.
correct.
We're just going to remind everybody here that we are not professionals. Don't take any advice from us.
Yep.
We have little peanut brains.
Yep.
I still try to put the square peg in the round hole. And Josh licks cold metal objects to see if his tongue will get stuck. So
It doesn't happen often. Yeah.
That's all I could come up with right there.
Yeah.
On the spot. It's pretty impressive, though.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
Improv is one of your best skills.
Is it? I appreciate
No.
it. Ouch. All right. So, we're going to dive into a topic today that I like to learn about here recently, because it's something that I think's on a lot of people's minds. Anyone who's, keeping up with the world.
Yep.
So here we go. As a Christian, Josh,
Uh-huh.
what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence? And what do you see that could make it dangerous, besides the obvious, Terminator movie scenarios?
Okay. I think as it is right now, AI can actually be a solid tool for the Christian. I think as it stands right now, AI is basically like a better search engine almost. So right before we started recording this episode, I actually just looked up I looked up a certain doctrinal issue from Christianity, and I said, what are some popular commentaries that relate to this issue, right?
Yeah.
And it spit out 5 immediately, and all of them were from pretty solid guys. The first one was the commentary on Romans by John Calvin.
Okay. Now, were you using AI to put this question in? Was this a Chat GPT deal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I searched the question on ChatGPT, and it spit out 5 immediately, where I could go to and look those up. Whereas normally, finding material on that kind of stuff is pretty difficult. Typically, with a lot of Christian resources, the websites aren't that great. It's difficult to get through information, right? Now, would I trust ChatGPT to give me actual information on Christianity? Absolutely not. But as far as finding resources and stuff like that, I think it can be a really great tool. And obviously, you would have to use your own discernment to figure out whether each individual source is reliable. But we always had to do that anyway. That's not new to AI. So, in that regard, I think it can be a really solid tool. Now, how it can get dangerous.
First and foremost, right?
Yep.
What other benefits, before we get into the negatives, the sort of what do you personally use it for now, and why is it still at a point where it's there's really no concern yet, if that's the case?
Okay, so the reason I would say there's no concern yet is because of the nature of AI as it currently exists. So right now, AI is essentially a compilation of information that currently exists on the internet, right? And it's an algorithm to wade through all of that information to get you an answer to your question. AI just uses pre-existing answers found on the internet and essentially rewrites all of that material into its own words to give it to you in a succinct manner.
Yeah.
Right? So there aren't any new thoughts coming out of AI right now. It's all just recognizing patterns in language and replicating those on a smaller scale. With that, there's not a lot of damage that can be done because it isn't, as of right now, for what the consumer is using it for. It isn't really dictating anything about day-to-day life. It doesn't have much power over day-to-day life. And it's not coming up with new things.
That you know of. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So this is where we get into stuff like generative AI that's coming out now, where it can make its own pictures, and eventually it'll absolutely get to the point where you can forge your own pictures that look like real life and essentially forge your own scenarios. Say things happened that never really did. That is something that will be available to the consumer at some point pretty soon, I would assume, and at that point it can certainly get dangerous, but until that happens, right now it's like I said, it's just a better search engine.
Yeah. No, and when you put it like that, like I've already seen people trying to use it for those reasons. Like I think yesterday I saw Michael Saylor. He's the CEO of MicroStrategies. They own a whole bunch of Bitcoin. Okay. And basically, they spoofed it to make it look like he was giving away a bunch of Bitcoin. You just need to send him your address or whatever. Yeah. So they're, there are malicious actors already trying to capitalize on these things, right? So, carry on.
Yeah, well, and they're going to catch a lot of people with that when it first starts, because people still haven't adapted to phone scams.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there will be AI that come out to combat those AI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The thing that you have to understand with AI, though, is it's never creative. In the way that, like, with humans, thoughts will just occur to you sometimes, right? You will just get ideas, these like light bulb moments. That doesn't exist with AI. AI just reorganizes and refines pre-existing information. So, regardless of how advanced we get, that human element of it is not something that AI will ever be able to access. The worry is when AI starts to communicate with itself and a greater kind of like network of AI is established, right?
Okay.
Because then you have AI that have arrived at conclusions with all of the information given to them, having correspondence with other AI that have done the same thing and potentially arrived at different conclusions. When they conference with each other, the conclusions that they draw will start to get more and more alien to human thought.
Okay. Now, is this before the theoretical point of sentience?
Okay.
Or would that be after?
So,
and is that possible from our perspective, knowing that God is the creator? Could something become sentient that I don't want to say that it wasn't his creation, because by default he created us, we created it,
right,
etc.
Right now what we have with AI is we have a bunch of different AI that are created for different purposes. For instance, there was the Deep Blue AI that IBM developed in the early 2000s. And this was essentially just a computer engine that learned chess, right? And then we had something called AlphaZero come along that used, I think it was called machine learning, but don't quote me on that. It was some learning something related to AI. Basically what it means is it learned from itself. So it would simulate millions of games over and over and over again until it could beat itself, right? And it would beat itself over and over and over until it got to a point where it would draw itself every time because it couldn't find holes in its own game. Well, that AI was created specifically for chess, right? So you're not going to be able to ask that AI what Freud thought about child development and nature versus nurture. Like, that's not its purpose. Where we could achieve something close to sentience with an AI is when all of those AI with specific purposes are given a way to conference with one another, and they begin to understand a more holistic view of the world. Because even with something like ChatGPT, you can't ask ChatGPT to interpret something, right? It is very strict. It will only give you statistics. Even if the statistics can be skewed in a certain way, it won't even give you the statistics. It will just say, well, this is reported to be very common, yada, yada, yada.
It's just a faster way of searching the internet.
Exactly. It's just a way to accrue information. But you do have stuff like the chess engines that come to their own conclusions by testing stuff through trial and error over and over and over again. So the only way that I would see us achieving full sentience with AI is if all of those come together and you give AI the license to generate its own ideas about how society should function and allow it to generate its own worldview through that same simulated trial and error. That would also require bandwidth to simulate on a global scale, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be visual, but you do have to have the bandwidth to maintain data points for that many things. That's where you get into like simulated humans and predictive human personality stuff and all of that. But by and large, I would say that's how we probably achieve sentience.
All right.
With that being said, in the event that happens, what we have is a centralized artificial intelligence mechanism, right?
Yes.
Like, that's just one. It's one mind that works as a whole, comprised of many different parts. Kind of like how the human brain operates, right? Like, the entire brain is not responsible for moving my hand and moving my fingers. That's a specific part. There's a different part that's responsible for interpreting visual stimuli and stuff like that. Well, if you start to ask this almost like hive mind AI how humanity should function, you have to understand that it is a machine, and it's probably not going to be able to account for things like human fulfillment, human satisfaction, human happiness, things like this. It will strictly look for efficiency and how humanity should be run.
Now, with that being said,
right,
with the introduction of like a Neuralink, would that be possible in the future? Now that it can actually tap into the brain and get different data sets?
I think it would be possible for it to understand.
Yeah.
I just don't see a reality where an AI finds that valuable.
Now, would that have to do with your soul or whatever makes us conscious?
Yeah, so that's it. Because we have no way of really describing that ourselves, I don't see AI ever understanding that either. Logically, I could see a method where it sees some kind of cognitive blind spot in humans' function that we don't personally see because we live with it every day.
Yeah.
And it from that could maybe extrapolate that the soul has to exist. And that would be really interesting to me.
That'd be cool.
That would be really interesting. But assuming that that's not realistic or possible, when we get to a point where AI is running our economy on a global stage, which we've already started towards.
With Aladdin from
Right.
BlackRock. Yeah.
Yes. When we get these sort of things, those algorithms will seek out the most efficient way for society to operate. And I don't think humans will enjoy that very much.
Okay, elaborate. What do you think?
Okay, so take, for example, leisure activities, right? We as humans need time off on occasion to, recuperate, just to have a break from work, to get together with friends, family, what have you. Our other responsibilities, social responsibilities, stuff like that. Well, if AI sees, hey, we need to generate this amount of food to maintain society, we need to account for this amount of population growth, you throw in climate regulations and stuff like that, how industry needs to be run, all of this stuff, it starts making certain demands of the workforce. Like, hey, we need this, and the people can't maintain that. Depending on the amount of control that AI has over general infrastructure, it could force us into doing that. Even with the Neuralink stuff, depending on how invasive that could be to cognitive function, and I don't see how it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
If there's an open door one way, it's an open door the other.
Yeah. Have you gotten your recent antivirus software uploaded into your head, Josh?
Right. I mean, yeah. Because if Neuralink aids with motor function and stuff like that, people can hack into that. Or there can be some kind of malware, glitch, whatever. We don't know right now what the potential results of that could be. But, yeah, with different software updates and stuff like that to refine that system, we also don't know what's being put in our heads at that point. So, there's just a lot of uncertainty with how that technology is going to end up working.
Well, you look at it and it's, it's at the point where the hope is in somebody who may be a paraplegic or a stroke victim or somebody with Alzheimer's, and it seems like it's really promising technology to change people's lives.
Yeah.
At face value.
Right.
But we don't know what comes after that.
Right. Yeah, well, and that's really the big worry. It's what kind of aids will this give to a healthy person? And with time, will those aids become in some way mandatory, right? Because before we had any kind of vaccines, obviously vaccines weren't mandated. But the more people researched the apparent benefits of the vaccines and stuff like this,
Which vaccines?
So, like with polio, for example, when this stuff first started, right? Like
Yeah.
all the standard vaccines that they give to like infants.
So
and stuff
before
like that.
mRNA vaccines.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right. So back when those vaccinations were first starting, it was not a mandate for anyone to get them. And to be fair, it still isn't. But if you want to operate in society, if you want your kids to be in public schools and participate in sports, stuff like that, they have to get certain vaccinations, right? If Neuralink has been a thing for, and other technologies like it, for 50 years, who's to say it's not seen in the same light? Where the benefits that it brings are now perceived as mandatory because we've lived with them for so long. And it is all a very slippery slope towards giving up our humanity entirely.
Yeah, because at that point, I mean, if that actually was a scenario, the people who had a Neuralink compared to the people that did not would be left in the dust in an age of technology.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the way the economy works, the way information is processed, there would obviously be an advantage to the way the world works.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, we're, taught to not be of this world, so there lies the dilemma in the future. If something happened to where that was mandated. And we can go further with that, but we'll just stay here and kind of see what the negatives will be in the short-term future.
Right. In the short-term future, with things like generative AI becoming more popular and more powerful, with the AI algorithms and all that stuff, none of it ever points people to God directly. When you look at nature and the things around you, the more you examine it, the more it points towards a maker, towards a divine creator, right? Like there's a certain beauty to it that you never see with algorithms and with all this stuff. The more popular AI becomes, the harder people are going to have to work to keep up with it. And the more you're just going to get absorbed into this world of the new most powerful predictive technology and the new most powerful algorithm and the new most powerful human physiology software, right, for like personal training and stuff like that. And it's going to be more and more and more digital things that aren't tangible, things that don't exist, really.
And that's my fear too, is like, so I read a statistic the other day. The average CEO of a company now needs to learn 7 new skill sets every year just to keep up with the advancement in technology, right? So if you're not implementing AI into your business, which can be a huge benefit for now, right? It just makes things easier, right? Our output is limited as an individual, so even just typing into Google and trying to research things ourselves, ChatGPT as a tool expedites the process significantly.
Yes.
Right? It saves so much time.
Yes, it does.
Because it's just gathering everything you were going to look for, and it just consolidates it into one neat little paragraph.
Yep.
And then obviously off of there, you can keep asking it questions, but you're going to find all the information that's already available to you anyway. So at this current moment, that's why I asked you what the pitfalls will be because it's something that I obviously have to take into consideration in all the things that we're trying to do as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a moral dilemma at certain points, because I know that in the future, like, yes, for now it's fine, but if you go in that direction, there's going to be a snowball effect. And eventually, I don't want to put myself in a position where I get sucked into that world.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, honestly, at that point, I guess we're living in the woods, right? But it's easier to say that now,
Right.
foreseeing that.
When you still see the woods every day.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the old adage about how to boil a frog, right?
Yeah.
You turn up the temperature slowly and the frog doesn't realize that it's being boiled at a certain point. I would also say there is a definite and pretty immediate threat of cognitive and mental atrophy when dealing with AI, because it does make it so easy to do so many things. Like if you're in school right now and you want to write an essay. Hey, ChatGPT, here's this topic.
Yeah.
Give me an essay. And then you just go through, change up some words so it passes an AI checker when you turn it in, and you're done. And you have a 5-page essay that you had to spend all of 30 seconds working on.
Well, is it considered copywriting at this point because the AI itself has collected and changed the wording? Like, where does it stand there?
Right, well, it's doing the same thing humans are, really. I mean, it's pulling from sources and writing its own thing. Now, technically, you are copying an AI, so it's not your own thought, which is the problem with it. But, with that being said, it's impossible to track. Teachers have, while I was in high school, while I've been in college, they've warned me, you better not use Google Translate for Spanish, because I'll know.
Yeah.
I use Google Translate for every assignment. They never said anything about it. You better not use AI to write this essay. I was already out of high school by the time this was an issue, but
we're rescinding your diploma, Josh.
Right? Yeah, like it's not like they don't pick up on it. They say they do, but they don't. You can even. Here's the crazy part.
Well, I mean, you're a pretty bright guy. It's probably hard to discern whether it was you or the AI.
Well, yeah.
Not fluffing you up, Josh. You know?
Well, a lot of the things they use, as far as I understand it, are vocabulary checks to see if you're ahead of your age group. Which would have been problematic for me while I was in school. But yeah, I don't know. It's just when you are allowed to rely on these things to do all this, there is a mental exercise in completing those assignments yourself, right? There is a strengthening of your cognitive function that comes with repetitions, doing certain things. And if those repetitions start to go away, people are going to get dumber and dumber as AI gets smarter and smarter. And the thing is, AI doesn't need us to get smarter anymore, right? Because it can just conference with itself. And then it can suggest experiments for us to do. We do the experiments and put the results. More cognitive atrophy on our part, more inputs for the AI to figure stuff out with. So
we're looking at an idiocracy?
We've been there for many years, but yes.
Living proof right here.
Yeah.
Peanut brains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. More than anyone will know. But yeah, anyway, that's as far as immediate. The thing is, in order to understand the Bible, in order to understand Holy Scripture, you do need to have a certain understanding of the language you speak. you need to have a certain understanding of allegory and metaphor, and when, like, hey, context clues indicate this isn't metaphor, it's just insane truth, right? And if we hit a point as a society where those skills are never developed because they don't need to be for day-to-day use, that is going to very directly impact our understanding of God's Word. Mm-hmm. Because we will be less apt to understand that. And like to kind of summarize the issue that I have with it, it's really that. It's that we are going to progressively get worse at communicating our own ideas and beliefs, and we're also going to progressively get worse at comprehending God's Word. So that's kind of where I'm at with that stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And as far as the theoretical stuff is concerned, which was like the first half of that.
Yeah. Theoretical is the operative word, right?
Right, yes. Theoretical is the operative word, and you don't have to worry about it anyway, because, Chris, if we win, we win, and if we lose, we win.
I ain't scared.
No. We already know how this ends, regardless of what role AI plays in that end. We know that Christ comes through for us in the end.
He already has.
He already has. We've already been saved.
Which actually...
He has done it, will do it, is doing it.
Yes. That was a great conversation earlier, in which I wish we filmed, so maybe we'll have to track back to
revisit that. Yeah.
Because that was a fun one.
Yes.
That was a real mind blower there.
Yeah.
So, all right,
yes.
man.
God's otherness from time.
So what is your key takeaway from what you just said? What would you tell people about Christianity and, obviously, if you were a Christian, using artificial intelligence at this point in time?
Yeah. Right now, today,
in your opinion?
In my opinion, I will say it can be used as a tool to gather information and broaden your horizons on philosophical matters. You should never be scared to entertain ideas. Because if the worldview that you currently have that's based around Christian doctrine and Christian ethics and all this, if it is sound, which I certainly believe it to be, right? It doesn't matter what other ideas you entertain, they will never supplant the ones that you already have, right? In fact, it'll just reinforce it. Because the more you analyze things, the more you'll understand the truth that you already held in your heart. So I would encourage people to use AI as a tool to achieve that purpose. Maybe there were some questions that you never even knew you needed to ask, but now you do because you have used AI to kind of explore the topic a little bit more. That's entirely possible, and that will only result in you becoming closer with God through the examination of His Scriptures.
Ooh, I like that. You can use AI to get closer to God.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you use it as a tool to find information in a more efficient manner, it can absolutely be used for that.
Yeah.
So, key takeaway, don't be afraid to use it as a tool as it currently exists. It's not Skynet yet.
Yeah.
It's not Skynet yet. And second key takeaway, more important key takeaway, God will win in the end. So there is no point in worrying about this or being paranoid about it. Awareness is great, but paranoia is not of God.
Amen.
There you go.
Amen. I like it. I like it. As a side note, from an entrepreneurial perspective,
Yep.
AI will inevitably take the human element out of business.
Yes.
So if you're looking to have a successful business in the future, create one with a human experience,
Yep.
and you'll do all right.
That is a very important note. Yeah, that
Yeah.
human experience is going to be increasingly more key in the future.
No, that is missing. So-
Yeah.
And it's already
missing.
yeah, it's already started. We talk about that every day.
Yeah.
So, well, good conversation, Josh.
Yes, sir.
I hope anybody that's watching this will keep, tuning in. We'll have some interesting conversations. Maybe learn something.
Hopefully interesting. Maybe learn something.
I wouldn't guarantee it because
never.
Like I said, my brain is the size of a Tic Tac, and
Cold metal poles.
Josh eats crayons. So
Yeah. Yep.
all right, brother. Cool.
Go Marines.